Okay, welcome to the Stellify podcast. And today I'm very honoured to be joined by Iain Davis, an investigative researcher, author, and journalist with many, many years of work uncovering hidden agendas, media manipulation, and the evolving mechanisms of power in modern states. In recent months, Iain has focused intensively on one of the most important issues affecting the rights and freedoms of everyone in this country, and that's digital ID. So what it really is, why it's being pushed now, and what it would mean if everyone it becomes embedded, into everybody's life. Most people have heard the term, and governments sell it as a convenience and modernisation. But Iain argues that the current proposals, including the so-called Brit card, are fundamentally a bait and switch psyop designed to shape public perception of what digital ID actually is, and to condition consent for something far deeper and more powerful. What we are dealing with right now isn't about a new app on your phone. It's about data aggregation, behavior shaping, surveillance capability, and the risk of a system that could be used to control who gets rights, access, and participation in society. Iain's research touches on the legal, technological, historical, and strategic frames of this issue, including how digital ID relates to the broader architecture of the technocratic state and why resistance may have to operate on multiple fronts, including constitutional and civic action. For this chat, we'll unpack what digital ID truly means, why it's been rolled out now, and how it differs from the government's narrative, and most importantly, what ordinary people can actually do to understand and to respond to it. And recently, I was fortunate enough to meet Iain in person at the Non-Mass Compliance Digital ID rally, where Iain made a fantastic speech delivering what's really going on. And it was really important. And it was probably the most powerful speech of the day. So thank you, Iain, for joining me today. And I think it was your first speech that you'd done, wasn't it?
It was, mate. Yeah, and thanks very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I've never done anything like that before, so I did have a kind of plan. I'd written some stuff down, then got out there, and that just completely forgot about all of that, and just winged it. But I mean, and thank you very much. It's very kind what you said, because there were some excellent speeches. There were a lot of very, very good speeches that day, and I was lucky to be part of it. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the things the reason that I was able to speak like I did about that was because I think that, like we've just been discussing off air, it's true. It's the truth, and when you're talking about the truth, it's easy to talk about the truth. You're not going to trip yourself up by, saying self-contradictory things, because it's the truth. That I think that's important when you listen to people speak. Not me, because I probably won't do it. I might do it again, but only on this issue, perhaps. Yeah, I think it's important to bear that in mind when you see things that are self-contradictory. That's usually an indication that something's not right, because the truth that isn't self-contradictory.
Absolutely. Before we get into any specifics, can you define in sort of clear terms what digital ID actually is versus how the government officials are describing it?
Yeah, so the government is presenting it as either an app on your phone in the Brit card sense, or one single kind of gateway into the system, one login, which is the government's portal for government, digital portal for government services. And whilst it is absolutely, obviously, it's important that that we don't accept these things, and that we don't use, or more importantly, that we don't use systems like one login, that is not what the true nature of digital ID is, because it is an interoperable network of vendor agnostic digital ID products. And what I mean by that is, there are numerous cards, apps, licenses, logins, all this kind of infrastructure, this digital infrastructure that we use, which currently is not, and habitually use, and we all use it, which currently is not linked together on what a guy from Palantir, the head of Palantir Technologies for the UK and Europe, Lewis Mosley, called the back end. So on the back end, that creates all these different systems. If you think about one login and brick card or whatever, or your driving license or your bank card, or all these different systems, digital things that we use, digital products, are currently form their own individual, what they refer to, people like the Bank for International Settlements refer to as disparate databases. So if you imagine for each of those products, there's all these different databases. And they currently are not linked. They are not linked. So your driving license is not linked to your bank card technologically. So when people are searching for information about you, for example, the police, if they're searching for information, they have to get a warrant so that they can research all these different databases. And obviously people like GCHQ can do this. I'm not suggesting for one moment that they can't already do this, but building that picture of your life is complex at the moment. But with software such as Palantir Gotham, which the government has already bought, what that kind of software can do is take any data from any database and convert it into a standardized machine exchangeable single standardized code. And that means that your driving license data can be linked in real time automatically to your bank card data. Now, all that data can then be hoovered up into one, what they're calling a unified ledger. So this is a distributed ledger, something probably a blockchain or something similar, can all be hoovered up into one unified ledger. So all of your data, Tony Blair talks about this all the time. Tony Blair, who represents Larry Ellison at Oracle, they talking about this all the time, of getting all your data from everyone. So you think about that. That's the interactions that we have in the real world every day, taking all that data and putting it into one massive unified data set, using stuff called software like Palantir Gotham, or there's another Oracle Golden Gate is similar. So this is what it does. So what that's doing is creating what we call interoperability. So interoperability of the data enables the unified ledger to be formed. Now, ordinarily, that data wouldn't be a lot of use. That because what you've generally, I mean, if you imagine data on the scale of the entire UK population, for example, the database that's going to create is so massive that ordinarily you wouldn't. It's not a lot of use. How are you going to interrogate that data to get anything useful out of it? So what the key is our biometric data, which links our token, our digitalized version of ourselves, our token. Mm-hmm. So we would be tokenized.
Yeah.
So there would be what that means is there would be an electronic representation of you in the form of a single digital token.
Yeah.
And what that means is that the AI can then use that token in the unified ledger in real time to automatically draw all the data, because your token would be attached to all your data, but only your data, to draw from that, what we might call that unified ledger, or some people call it a data lake, to draw the data relating to you instantaneously out of that massive distributed ledger technology database, out of that, so that in real time, should anyone look, and this, the problem we've got here is it's not just the government, it's the government and their partners, corporate partners, companies like Experian and Palantir and Oracle, and they also have access to this data, which will tell them everything about your life, everything you buy, everything you eat, everywhere you go, everything you do, every transaction you make, everything. And currently the safeguards that are in place, things like GDPR, to stop the sharing of that information are just ridiculous. I mean, companies like Experian, whose business model is buying and selling data, are integrally linked into how this is going to be put together. So that entire network, that is digital ID.
Yeah.
Not
Not
one,
brick card.
not brick card, not
One
now
login.
one login. So what the government are selling you, or what the government are presenting to us as digital ID, doesn't even come close to encompassing what digital identity. I think it's probably worth saying, maybe we should talk about digital identity rather than digital ID.
Yeah.
So this is digital identity. This is our personal identity, covering every aspect of everything we do, being instantaneously available to God knows who, whenever they want, however they want to use it. Now, that is digital identity, not what the government is selling it to us as digital quote ID. So while it is absolutely vital and it is very encouraging, recently we've seen it that it's that people are opposed to digital ID.
Mm-hmm.
Digital ID, I use that term again. So they're opposed to brick card, they're opposed to using one login, and that's good. That is really good, and that shows that people are thinking about these things. What concerns me is that if we look at the way this narrative was set up from the start, what seems to be happening, or what I fear is happening, is that the government and other groups that are promoting the same kind of idea are giving us this thing to say, this is what we need to oppose, and we do need to oppose it. I'm not saying that we don't. We absolutely do. But there was a very, very interesting discussion on Times Radio with this guy Lewis Mosley, who's the head of Palantir Technologies UK and Europe,
Right.
and John Pienaar. And this is just when government launched Brickcard, and Mosley said, I don't think, and quite a big thing was made of the fact that Palantir was seemingly against the idea of digital ID. Palantir came out and said it was against the idea of digital ID. And what Mosley said was, we don't need a new form of national identity card, which is true, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
All we need to do, he said, all we need to do is tweak the back end a bit so that all our different things, like our driving license and our bank card, can talk to each other in harmony. That's all we need to do. So what I fear is that people are going to say, well, we're not having this brick card. And then companies like Palantir will go, or this digital ID as the government are selling to us, then companies like Palantir will step up and say, well, we don't need to do that. We don't need to have this thing. All we need to do is tweak the back end a bit. Now, that tweaking of the back end, that is interoperability. That is what they are talking about.
Yeah.
So he knows that, and he also knows that that is the real digital identity. That is how digital identity is set to be formed. That is how our digital identity is set to be formed. So the government, in my view, is just playing a propaganda role here.
Yeah.
It's creating this notion of what we need to oppose, whereas in reality, I'm afraid, and there's not much we can do about this. I don't think. One thing that I spoke about when I gave that little speech, is in order to resist the true nature of digital identity, we need to fundamentally change our lifestyles. We cannot continue to use the digital system that has been given to us in the way that it has been given to us, and expect not to be subject to digital identity. Because if we just carry on using what we're doing at the moment, just signing up for stuff, just using our apps on our smartphones, if we just carry on doing that, whether we oppose Brickcard or one login or not, we will all be subject to digital identity, because we're missing the thing that we need to oppose, in my view.
Oh, I totally hear you, Ian, and I think you're dead right with the psychological. We know that the governments like to play a good psychological warfare on its people, like it or not. You know, it was so apparent to many of us in 2020 what was going on, and now they're playing that game where they may provide you with a little win. They've done this forever, haven't they? So you oppose Brickcard, well, that gets knocked off. Or let's say reform come in, we'll knock this out. That's fine. And then people go, we've won. You know, we've voted in these people, and they've saved the day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I spoke about it as initially when it first came out, because it was what Mosley said that really struck me, and I called it a bait and switch. So I said, that they are misrepresenting what digital identity is. They are lulling us into accepting it. And the reason that we need, I mean, obviously the idea that third parties that you don't know, you've got no quote unquote democratic oversight over, that you don't know where this data is being shared, you don't know how it's being used. So obviously the idea that a third party like Oracle, let's take Oracle for example. So Larry Ellison has already said, once we're subject to this system that they're trying to bring in, this system of digital identity, he's openly said at places like the World Government Summit, that we will be, meaning us, we will be on our best behavior, because we, i.e. Oracle and their corporate partners and their public sector government partners, will be watching everything you do.
Yeah.
Now, he's not joking. That is digital identity. That is digital identity. So we can either accept that and carry on doing what we're doing, in which case if we do, we're not going to avoid this. It's going to be implemented not just on the British. This is global.
Yeah,
This
it
is
is.
happening everywhere simultaneously. There are no developed nations or emerging economies that are exempt from it. There are none. Everybody is going to be subject to it. The Americans, they don't think they are, but they are. In fact, it's rolling out at a great pace, probably the fastest anywhere in the world. It's rolling out in the US. So, that we are all going to be subject to it, but we have to, or I say, we will all be subject to it if we just go along with it.
Yeah.
But their Achilles heel is that if we don't go along with it, there is nothing they can do about it.
Yeah.
Their whole notion of digital identity is based on us accepting and using these digital systems, which are, I hate to say it, which are the digital systems that the vast majority of us are already using.
Of course. Yeah.
Right. So they're not talking about reinventing the wheel in that sense. What they're talking about is tweaking the back end a bit, which means making that entire thing interoperable, which will I don't know how. It is not unreasonable to say, and I know people don't like using the word, but it is true nonetheless. It will enslave us.
Definitely.
When that is linked, it's so obvious that the plan is to get us all into this interoperable digital identity system. Once we're in it, then they will roll out programmable digital currency.
Yeah.
There is no reason on this earth not to know that is going to happen. It is obviously going to happen. The whole, the global monetary and financial system is being reconfigured on that basis. The organisations like the Bank for International Settlements, groups like the UN, groups like the World Economic Forum, governments around the world are all rolling out some model of programmable digital currency.
Yeah.
In the UK at the moment, they're looking at what they call deposits, tokenized deposits.
Mm-hmm.
In the US, it's stable coins. In
Yeah.
other countries, in Russia and in the EU, it's central bank digital currency. It doesn't really matter. It's all the principle is the same in all of these cases. So what they are intending to do, so obviously what they are intending to do, is get us into the digital identity system, link that to programmable digital money, and then take away all other forms of monetary exchange.
Yeah.
Once that is done, I cannot. And this is what people don't seem to get. This is what they don't grasp, and it is so worrying that people are not getting this. That's the end of it for us in terms of human freedom. When everything you do is monitored and controlled, when every transaction you make is controlled in real. Now, this is not hypothetical. They have already done this.
Mm-hmm.
They've done it in, the UN have got these things called green tokens, which they've trialed in places like Montenegro, where they have already attached people's rights and their ability to transact in the economy to their behavior via these things called green tokens, which are smart contracts which will be attached to every transaction. Now, that means that you have to obey whatever the UN decides you need to do, or whatever the UN considers to be sustainable. They've already trialed it, they've already done it, and they can do it in real time. So what this means is that if you make a transaction, say you go and you want to buy some fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, in order to determine how much fuel you can have, or in order to determine, you'll put some limit on it or anything like that, or in order to determine whether or not you can actually buy fuel, governments would have to have some sort of regulation or legislation that enables them to do that.
Yeah.
Right, so there'd have to be some sort of mechanism by which they control what you do. In the digital identity-based world that they are creating, when you have got programmable digital currency, AI will program your money so that it is impossible for you to buy the fuel that you want in the quantity that you want, where you want, when you want. AI will determine when you can do that. For example, an AI is a mindless giant calculator.
Mm-hmm.
AI is programmed by human beings with agendas.
Mm-hmm.
So that AI control, which AI is the big kind of game changer, which is why they're quite happy now to talk about these unified ledgers, which will, basically massive data lakes, which otherwise you couldn't use. AI can use them. AI can interrogate them. So what this means is in real time, all our transactions will be controlled by by, let's say, Oracle. Oracle will determine not the law, not some. And then there are papers that have already been put out. We're talking about something. Is sometimes people refer to it as the agentic state. So this is a state that is run by algorithm. Some people call it the algocracy. So this is not run by law. The government wouldn't have to pass a law to limit where you could buy food, for example. They wouldn't need to do that in this new system that they're trying to build globally. They would just program an AI to determine when, where, from whom you can buy food. That is slavery.
Yes.
There's no other word for that.
Yes.
It is slavery. And we are walking into this system. We are walking into it, and
Yeah.
people are not doing anything about it. They're just passively going along with it.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel I'm with you on the frustration of all of that. And this system is the perfect system for a tyrant, and
Yeah,
it shows where they've implemented all these young leaders in all these prime positions, and it's quite frightening, really. When I was growing up, Ian, I was taught how I must trust certain pillars of community, be it your teacher, your doctor, um, and scientists, look what that got us. But no, there was no one time I was taught to trust a politician.
no,
Never, never. In fact, I was taught the complete opposite, that these buggers lie and they're the best at lying. But all of a sudden, we're putting this faith, or the general population are putting the faith in politicians with vested interests that are bought and paid for
yeah,
massively. It's frightening.
yeah, and it is quite ironic, isn't it? Because if you talk to any, I mean, I don't know any. I don't have I've I don't know if I know anyone, and I very rarely even encounter this argument online. If you ask anybody, do you trust politicians? They, what's the normal response you get is people laugh, don't they? I mean, of course I don't trust nobody trusts politicians. No, I don't know anyone that does. But yet we keep electing them, and we keep electing them, and then saying to them, "Oh, please tell us what to do." I just
I know. I
I
know.
for me that is on the both. It is both traumatizing and sad. It's
It is. It opens the exploration of human behavior in itself, really, on why it happens. I mean, exploring 2020, and I can always revert to this because it's close to us and it's such an important moment in our time, that we can see that the trust, the Boris a clock moments where he would like appear and go, sorry, tier 4, you can't get out your house today, but tier 3 in Bolton can because they behave themselves, and
yeah,
it's like, are people actually listening to these people? And now I feel, and you probably feel the same, that this point in our, I don't know how we've ended up being at this point in humanity in terms of historical moment, but I think we're at the pinnacle of massive, the biggest important moment in humanity. Because if we don't resist this and stop this, then humanity is enslaved, and future generations are never going to be able to come out of this because they'll be normalized into it so much they'll never know what human is about. They'll have no idea. It's down to us now to sort this out. We have no choice.
yeah. No, we don't have a choice. Yeah. Now this is the as James Corbett says, the game for all the marbles. This is it. This is it. We either, if we cross that Rubicon and we adopt these digital identity systems that they want us to adopt in short order, and I mean quickly, there'll be, you can envisage the scenario. As soon as they've got us into this system, there'll be some sort of global financial crash or something like that that will be orchestrated, that will necessitate in the short term restricting the money supply, and the only way to manage it will be through introducing some sort of programmable digital currency. We have to move to this tokenized system. We'll have no choice. It's an emergency response, and that'll be it. And I I mean, I'm not. People accuse me of being black pilled and all that sort of stuff. Fine, but unless you understand the nature of the threat, you can't defend yourself against it. You can't defend you against yourself against something that you don't even know exists. So you have to be aware of it. But I'm certainly not black pilled, and that's why it
No.
was so important to me to speak at the rally. As you said, it's not something that I've ever done, and I wouldn't normally go on a protest because I don't believe in protesting against the government, because you can't change the government. You just whatever you do, the government's still there. Doesn't matter who you elect.
Yeah.
Whoever you elect, you get the government, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So, but this wasn't about that. This protest was different, and I was more than happy to support it, because it was about us. It was taking back our agency and doing what we need to do in order not to use the system that they are trying to force us to use. Because if we just stop using it, and I think that's probably a more accurate thing to say, to stop using the system that we are currently using, because that nothing will need to happen to the system. We won't even necessarily notice the changes that will go on, as go back to what he said, Lewis Mosley said, on the back end. We perhaps won't even notice those changes.
No.
Because we're not aware of what digital identity is. We don't know what it is. So we have to be acutely aware of what it is, because then we can stop using it, right? And that does mean getting rid of your smartphone. It does mean maximizing your independence so that you're not reliant on the state so much. We have to do that. If we just carry on using all the conveniences that are given to us by the state, right? Nothing is free.
No.
Nobody gives anything to you freely.
No.
Well, power structures don't give anything to us freely. It just doesn't happen. You're deluding yourself if you think that they do. If they want you to use it, there is a reason that they want you to use it. And that reason nearly always boils down to the same thing. It's control. It's behavioural control.
Yes.
Because they fear us.
Yeah.
Because we have things like, I mean, I've written a couple of pieces lately that are more kind of constitutionally focused. And we have in our constitution, whether you believe whichever version of the constitution you accept, it is undoubted that our entire so-called democratic system is based on the principle that we are all equal before the law. We are all equal before the law. Every single one of us, without exceptions, including the Prime Minister, including the King, including all the executive officers of Palantir in the UK. They are all equal before the law. So it cannot be true that Parliament, as it claims, has the authority to create or end any law. It's a mutually exclusive contradiction. It can't be both. We are either all equal before the law, or Parliament and parliamentarians, the government, is not equal before the law. It claims it can create or end any law. So we cannot therefore claim that it bothers in the least about our constitutional rights and freedoms. That it can't be both. So, we can come to a point where we can start using things like the law and lawful challenges, and we can start challenging authority, using the mechanisms of the law. That we can definitely do that kind of thing, and there are people that are better qualified than me to talk about that kind of thing. People like Claire Willis. She's Claire Willis Harrison. She's certainly somebody people ought to listen to. But if in the meantime we unknowingly and unwittingly accept digital identity and start using digital identity systems, it doesn't really matter what we think about the law. They are moving us to a system whereby law itself will become superfluous.
Yeah.
All that will exist is AI control of your behaviour. That's all there will be. Law will be kind of irrelevant.
That's the key point, like you were saying, though. Once it's connected to your money, because we are generally controlled with fear. You know, as a working class man myself, if you've not got any money in your bank account, it's very stressful and it's very
Yeah,
worrying. If you can't
yeah.
pay your bills, if you can't put food on the table, it's a problem. And they could control you so easily by restricting your money by behavior with the social crediting
Oh,
system.
yeah,
It's so easy where people will just police themselves. You
yeah,
know, you won't need bobbies. I mean, we don't have bobbies on the street anymore, really. Anyway, they're not. It's not the same anymore. But the police do the police know that effectively they may not be in work themselves in the next few years because they won't be needed because algorithms will police people instead.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, obviously there'll probably still be things like the occasional kind of flare up and things like that in a pub or whatever. So you mean, there will be that kind of thing that they're still needed for. But most of the police force won't be needed. Yeah, sure.
I know.
I mean, I'm not talking about something that's going to happen in the next 10 years, but certainly by the end of the century, we could be in this easily could be in this thing that people talk about, the agentic state, where there is no need for any kind of law or of anything because everything is agreed by AI algorithm. So if you think about and as you quite rightly say, millions of us are reliant upon, we're only 3 meals away from famine, that kind of thing, and that is the truth for most of us. Most of us are reliant upon a monthly income.
Yeah.
Another thing that they want to introduce and another thing that they want us to adopt undoubtedly is universal basic income, that or some model of it, so that we are more and more and more reliant just for our survival on the benevolence of the state. Once that's, if you think that, I mean, the Bank of England have already put out papers where they're talking about the use of, in this case, they were talking about the use of central bank digital currency, but what they mean is programmable digital currency, where they've already said that they envisage that all wages will be paid by that within, we can envisage a point where all wages will be paid in central bank digital currency within the next 10 years. Right? Now, if all wages, they're talking about public sector, but if all public, even if it is just the public sector, if public sector wages are paid in central bank digital currency or some form of programmable digital currency, that means that all businesses, all shops, everybody will, everywhere will have to somehow take payment in central bank digital currency. So they'll need the systems that enable them to take the payments. So that will roll out. And then, one of this is the deceptive, the essence of the deceptive nature of the propaganda we are given. At the same time, the Bank of England says, of course, we're not planning on getting rid of cash. We're not planning on that. Right. But of course, using cash is as we all know, getting hold of cash, as in, getting it out of a cash point, is already orders of magnitude harder today than it was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Where are the cash points, right? You have to drive miles to find a cash point.
Yeah.
Right. So they are removing cash. What they're saying, we're not removing cash, but you are, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if like something like the public sector are paid in digital programmable currency, even though we're not removing cash, within a couple of years, nobody will be using cash. It's not that they've removed it, it's that nobody's using it.
That's right.
And then when nobody's using it, why would businesses, and that they already make it harder for businesses to take cash. So businesses will start saying, well, what's the point? We can't, taking cash is too onerous for us. They've removed the systems that deal with cash. So even though we're not taking cash away from you, it just so happens that not a single business in the UK is geared up to take it.
Yeah, and they were normalising this again, 2020. I mean, I signed for a pub the day they shut the pubs, Ian. So so we stood up against everything, went again, and we didn't last long. We lost absolutely everything. But I took cash all the time. I'd be counting it like that, so I wasn't afraid of some weird thing that's floating around trying to kill me, that only tried to kill you when you sat down and you had to wear a mask to get to the toilet, kind of thing. But
well, you're all right if you were sitting down, weren't you?
Yeah, you were safe. You were fine then.
Yeah.
But if you stood up, you're knackered. You're dead.
You're dead if you stand up. Yeah.
Yeah. But they were doing the QR code thing then. That normalization of the QR code came in, where you'd put a QR code on the table, you'd make your order, and the waitress or the barmaid would come. And we had those QR codes to satisfy our brewery, but we never implemented it. People came to our bar. We had a pub. That was the thing. But you could see what they're trying to do, and it's all about normalization. It's the same about the physical buildings now of high street banks. You can't even find one now. I can't get to my bank. I don't even know where my nearest bank is now. And everything is through the bleeding app, or when you phone up, you're speaking to some AI bot before you can even get close to a human being. They're making it hard. It's the same with the NHS. Everything's a nightmare, isn't it? They're intentionally screwing up all the physical infrastructures that are services that we need, so we then become reliant on bloody AI. Our doctor's useless. It is useless. I'll say it. So we get more out of bloody chat GPT than we would out of our doctor, and that's a problem.
Well, yeah, and also your doctor is probably using chat GPT.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it is, yeah, and that's, I mean, this is it. This is what they say, and this is why it's so important that we take responsibility, right? Because obviously, if anyone doubts that they're not trying to funnel us into this digital hellhole that they want us to use, it's obvious that they are. All the things that you've just said. I presume you live up north. Whereabouts are you living?
Near Preston.
Right, you're near Preston. I'm right down on the south coast. It's the same. Right?
Yeah.
We're exactly the same down here. Yeah. Right? We can't getting an appointment with the doctor is damn near impossible.
Absolutely.
Right? So that is happening everywhere at the same time.
Yes.
Right now, it's happening everywhere at the same time because they want you to use the digital system. They don't want you to go to your doctor and stand in the waiting room. They won't. I mean, at our local GP, you can't go into the GP and make an appointment. You have to do it by phone or I would go in there and stand there with your phone and phone them up, stood in front of them. It's craziness, right? But the reason is that they want us to use these systems, just as they say we're not getting rid of cash, but it just so happens that you can't get it anywhere.
Yeah,
we're told these contradictory things all the time. But what we can, so therefore, what are we gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Now there are people, we have to start thinking about, and I'm sure, and I know that there are doctors and medical professionals that are on board with the kind of things that we're talking about. We need to start setting up independent services where with real doctors and real nurses, where people can go, like a physical place where they can go and see a medical professional and a health professional. Yeah. Now, of course, the state will say, well, that's unlicensed. They'll impose restrictions on it and blah, 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 blah. But, at some point, we have to start taking control of the situation. We need to start setting up businesses that take cash. And insist that that's what they take and not use their digital systems. I mean, one of the things that I talk about, and one of the things that I've mooted is if enough of us reject this digital identity system, and we do that in sufficient numbers, we will create a market, a new market. But what do we call it? The non-digital market. So if we create that non-digital market, of course businesses will cater to it. They'll see it as an opportunity. And we can build. I mean, there are plenty of us, the people that are not willing, and that's another lie that they tell us, that there aren't many more of us than we probably imagine.
Yeah.
I think that was evident during COVID, certainly, and COVID was a trial balloon for what the system that they want to roll out. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced of that now. In retrospect, it was a trial balloon for this digital identity, programmable digital currency world.
Yeah,
that's what COVID was.
Yeah.
So they want us to get us into this system. They want us to get us into this system, and at the time during COVID, it became evident when we went on the marches, that this isn't like nobody. That we're not a fringe, tiny little fringe that know that there is something fundamentally wrong with this COVID narrative. There are millions of us. There are millions of us.
Yeah.
Now that became evident. I noticed it. I went on a couple of the marches, and it was clear that they were very, very large.
Yeah.
So people had come from all over the country to go on those marches.
Yeah.
So I suddenly thought, well, right, so there's a lot of us. It's not just a tiny minority. If you look at the jab take up, it wasn't a small percentage of the population that refused to take them. Even initially, I think something like 15, forgive me, I've got these wrong, but something like 15% of the population didn't take any. But when we got to, the third or fourth, jab update, it was something like 10 or 15% of the population that were taking them. Nobody else was taking them.
Yeah.
Right. But which they didn't bother making any kind of noise about.
Right? But they bring in the fear. Sorry, and to interrupt, and just while it's in my head, the fact that they bring the fear in, if they then create a social crediting system where you can't travel without your latest jab and your booster, people have already shown that they'll have a jab to go to Benidorm. They'll have a jab to watch Coronation Street if they have to, as long as they're getting what they feel they need for peace of mind. And it's a real worry.
Yeah, and I think this is what I mean. If there are enough of us that resist this, and we're serious about it, which means that your red line has to be something other than going at Benidorm, right? If your red line for refusing to use these systems is, oh, well, I better do it, otherwise I won't be able to go to Benidorm. Right, example, I haven't got a passport. I'm not going to renew my passport because I know that the passport's got a machine readable zone on it. I'd have to submit an updated version of my biometrics, my face, which is already on my driving license, but that was me 15 years ago, right? So and of course AI can still recognize me on the rolling out network of facial recognition cameras that are also being rolled out around the country. AI can age me, so AI can recognize me anyway from that photo, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get a passport, so I can't go abroad, right? Now, people would unfortunately, it is true that a lot of people would not be prepared to do even that, right? Then they would not be prepared to do that because they've got their holiday booked and they're not going to lose a couple of grand for the sake of standing up against something. But unfortunately, that is the pathway into dictatorship and tyranny. That is the pathway into dictatorship and tyranny. We can resist it. We can stand up against it. But unfortunately, the generation of people that do are going to have to bite the bullet, because they are gonna make things. They really want us to use these systems.
Yeah.
They have set the whole thing up for us to use them.
Yeah.
So they're not going to passively just let us get away with not using them. They will make it difficult. I mean, I don't think for one moment in the UK that it is viable for them just to send out, brutal police squads to round everybody up and throw them in the clink, right? That wouldn't work. That wouldn't work on a social scale. There probably would be a revolution if they started doing that sort of stuff. So they're not going to do that, in my view. They'll probably do it to a few, but they won't do it to many.
Yeah.
What they will have to do is make it as hard and as awkward and as difficult as possible to not use their system. That's the way they'll go about doing it. And I'll also say they will also reward people for using the system. So if you use the system, you'll get, like, if you're using programmable digital currency, you'll probably get a better price at the shops. There'll be two prices. There'll be the cash price and the digital currency price.
Yeah, you can see that.
You'll get a better price, right? So all of these things will be set up. But if just one or two generations, I know that sounds a lot, but we have to do it. If we create that market, that non-digital market, which we can do, if we create that non-digital market, businesses will increasingly cater to that market.
They will.
And there will become a tipping point where it will not be viable for their system. They won't have the control that they so desperately desire, because an increasing number of us will not be controllable in that way because we're not using their systems. But that does mean chucking your smartphone away, not having a passport, only using the things that you really have to do. Like, so, right, I live, off grid. I need bottled water. That's something that I need. I have to use a supermarket to get bottled water. There aren't any. I haven't found anywhere around here that has got either a supermarket or one of these supermarket, small, community little shops that are run by supermarkets. They're the only people that sell bottled. I need 5 litre bottles. They're the only people that sell them. Little shops don't sell them, so I have to go and use them. So we all are subject to the system already to some greater or lesser extent. What we all need to do is maximize and be vigilant of how we use the system. Be vigilant how we use it, and always use it with a view to minimizing the extent that we use it. It's not going to be practical probably for us to totally not use it, but we can minimize our interaction with it, and that should be the goal, I think, for those of us that are willing to stand against this tyranny.
Totally makes sense, that, Iain, and I think that's a powerful movement, a non-digital system where people can start trading with each other, start operating with each other, communities are built, working together. That's a powerful movement, that.
Well, I think so, and that's why I was very keen to go to, on the march, because I thought that's it. That's, this is right. This is what we need to do. We need to. I mean, somebody did point out that there were a lot of people there at the march that were photographing it on their phones, right? So we got a way to go. But I mean, there again, one thing that I wrote, I recently published a book, and the one thing that I wrote about in the book is that we don't, technology, the technology, the way that the technology is given to us. So take, for example, the smartphone, right? It is designed to monitor everything you do and to track you and to transmit that data to centralized databases. That's what your smartphone is, a spy basically in your pocket. It doesn't have to be. The technology already exists by which it isn't. There are things like Braxman phones, and there are things like Linux phones. There are other operating systems that we can use which don't do that. but that means, so it's not as if the smartphone itself is a bad idea or the technology is a bad idea. It's the way that the technology is used and controlled by people who seek to rule us.
That's right. That's right. I mean, we're using tech right now to have this conversation. It's not that it's a bad thing. We're using it, in my view, for the right purpose. In a positive sense, where we're trying to bring awareness to what is really happening. And this enables us to potentially reach many people, hopefully, without, having to go into the street. We want to do that as well. That's important. The physical contact's very, very important, but potentially this could get shared, hopefully will, and people will get your message and will understand. But that's tech, and I don't think tech's a bad thing. It's like a double-edged sword. You can or a knife. You can butter a piece of bread if you want to, a slice of bread, or you could stab someone. It's who's holding this tech is the issue. People like Tony Blair being influencing governments, a man that shouldn't even be free, in my view, for the crimes that he's committed. But yet they're prepared to throw people in jail for hurty words on social media. It's quite frightening, really. Do you think because the tech has shifted so much, they're in a position now? They've literally, the tech's ready. That's why they're doing it now. That's why the push is now, because they could have done this before.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a progression. They've definitely got 2030 in mind. I think is some sort of pivotal point for them. They're all gearing up for that. I think they want to have the infrastructure pretty much solidified by 2030. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, they're still working on that. I mean, that's another point as well. They haven't quite sorted it out yet, because in order for them to do what they want to do. If you imagine the unbelievable amount of data that they're talking about managing and overseeing, they need the data centers. They've got to build the data centers, right? So the data centers are going to be a rough estimate. So if we consider about the kind of what the WEF called the fourth industrial revolution. Which is basically what we're talking about, the introduction of this digital identity, programmable digital currency world. The estimates are that between now and 2050, in order for that digital infrastructure to be made real, the increase in power demand would be the equivalent of adding the nation of Japan, to the world's power demand every year between now and 2050.
Wow.
So that's not going to be done. That's why we're seeing the shift in the climate narrative, because they can't do that using windmills and solar panels, right? So that's not going to work. So they have to use small nuclear reactors probably. So that's what they need to somehow kind of say, well, yeah, sure, the planet's still on fire, but we do need to focus a little bit on energy. Why? Because they need to increase energy production, because they need to erect these data centers, which we're already doing. Just as the US has got Project Stargate, so's the UK. There's a UK Stargate. Sam Altman, who's behind OpenAI's kind of push for Stargate in the US, just the same in the UK. Just as the US have got their special economic zones, which they're calling freedom cities, we're just the same in the UK, where our so-called prime minister has signed up to partnerships with BlackRock to invest to take 20 billion pounds worth of UK taxpayers invested money to build these free ports and to solidify that, which is where they will be building the data centers, because they're unregulated zones, just as they are in the US, just as they are in the UK, just as they are in the EU, and just as they are in China and Russia. Same. So there's no difference. This idea that the narratives that we are given, that this is somehow, these oppositional narratives are all to distract us from the only thing that we really need to focus on, and that is defending ourselves against the attacks and the assaults that are being made on us by the people who claim the authority to rule us. That's it. There isn't all other distractions, left versus right, black versus white, man versus woman, generation versus generation. It's all distraction garbage. If you talk to people out in your community, right, when you walk about, what do you think people are like mainly? The people are all right. People are all, what different ages, or people are all right. They just want their kids to have a decent future. They just want to live in peace.
Absolutely. That's it.
All the other divisions are put there so that we don't, so that we're always at each other's throats or arguing about something. Meanwhile, they are rolling this stuff out. They're rolling it out.
Yeah, and people have no idea. That's the thing; they've no idea. And I'm glad you brought climate change up, actually, because it's a great tool of weaponization again against the people, isn't it? It's the silent weapon again. Or the invisible weapon almost. Not much is going on really. I know things are, there is a change, but I mean, let's be honest, they're spraying the bloody skies and all sorts of shit's going on anyway. So we're constantly under a barrage of attack from all angles. But they can use this, can't they, to control us again via a social crediting score, the carbon tax credits or whatever. They're already implementing that on your banking apps or some banking apps. And I was buying a sandwich. I was visiting a friend of mine in hospital recently, and there was a sandwich in the canteen, and it was saying how much carbon allowance how much carbon allowance I'm allowed by eating that sandwich. And it's quite ludicrous, really, that we're falling into this. And you mentioned tokenization, the digital twin, but they can do that with our assets as well, can't they? So they can, using climate change would be a great tool to take your property. You'll own nothing and be happy.
Yeah, they're already, if you look at what the system of sustainable development is, if you look at sustainable development goals and where that comes from, which is Agenda 21, which in 2016 became Sustainable Development Goals of Agenda 2030, same thing, right? They talk about what they call ecosystem services, right? So ecosystem services are, if you think about a forest, for example. A forest, we look at it and we think it's beautiful. A forest has got some potential commercial value, lumber, for example, but it's not generally. We don't look at it as a money-making venture. It's something. That's not true, obviously, because there are a lot of managed forests which do generate revenue. But nonetheless, broadly speaking, you know what I'm talking about. We're talking about nature, right?
Yeah.
That is not what they're creating with sustainable development. They're calling those ecosystem services. So a forest is an ecosystem service because it is a carbon sequestration service. So obviously, forests, they take in CO2 and produce oxygen. So that is a service which can be measured using orbital satellite observation technology. That you can measure the value of that service and give it a monetary value. Once you've given it a digital monetary value, you can tokenize the forest. So each little square of forest is a tokenized asset, which you can then trade globally on global markets. People can buy and sell that asset. A forest. Right now, you would think, wow, no, they're not going to do that. They've already done it. They're already doing it in Brazil. They're already doing it in the rainforest. That's exactly what they're doing. Right? And that's what they want to do to everything on Earth. That's what they want to do to the world. right? And they're trying to create a tokenized digital economy, which based on nature, tokenized value of nature, somewhere between $4 to $5 trillion. Oh, sorry, I got that wrong. $4 to $5 quadrillion.
Wow.
Right. So that is a global economy that is 10, 20 times the size of the economy that we've currently got based on what? Oil and energy transitions. So this is why companies like Saudi Aramco could not be more on board with sustainable development.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The idea that sustainable it always makes it's hilarious. The idea that the so-called big polluters are against sustainable development is just the craziest thing. They have invested billions. Saudi Aramco has invested $860 billion in the green transformation of, moving away from fossil fuels. So it's invested in moving away from its own business model. Do we really think that it's done that? Of course it hasn't. It's invested in transforming its business model. That's what it's invested in, and which is what sustainable development will deliver. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
Right? So again, we come back to this notion that everything that people think that they believe in, for example, measuring the tokenized value of a forest, right, which is what they're doing, is not got anything to do with the narratives that we are given about saving the planet. It's all about transforming in this case, economic and financial control structures.
Yeah.
To control what? To control us again. It all comes back to controlling us. This is but what that means is, and they're so worried about controlling our behavior, they put in, they're so focused on it. It is the absolute focus of everything that they do. Then obviously, what does that tell us? That tells us that our behavior is what they fear the most.
Yeah.
Why? Because we can change it. There are 8 billion of us. There are, a few thousand of these oligarchs, maybe. Stephen Rothkopf said 6,000. All right, fair enough. 6,000. But there are 8 billion of us. So, of course, they're trying to control us, because if we don't go along with their control systems, they won't work. We just have to say, no, we're not using it. We're not using it in the way that you want us to use it. We're not using your technology because you gave it to us. We will use our own technology. We will develop it. We're not using your political systems, your socio-political systems. We'll develop our own, thanks. We don't need you. We don't need you. We've never needed you.
Yeah.
We just need to realize that we've never needed them. If once we can, and once we do, it's game over for them. That's why they're trying to get us into this digital control system as quickly as possible. Because I think it is fair to say, and a point that you made earlier, going back to this point that you made earlier, we are at a pivotal moment, and they are exposed at this moment, I would say, because in order to get us to do what they want us to do, they do have to run these psyops like COVID. So they have to expose themselves a bit and run the risk of millions of people going, hang on a minute, right? What's this all about? They have to run that risk, and they've done it with COVID. They'll do it with anything: war, disease, famine, whatever. They'll use whatever narrative or whatever story they can use to cajole us to use this new system that they are rolling out. And if we don't accept it, if we don't use it, short of just bombing us, there isn't anything they can do about it.
Yeah,
There's nothing
exactly.
they can do about it.
I think as well, I find that there's an attack going on. I mean, it's an attack on all the people, but there's an attack going maybe on the middle class as well here, because they generally have comfortable lives. I'm not middle class, by the way. I'm very much working class. I'm proud of it, but you know, I think that the middle class probably don't realise, and upper class for that matter, the potential dangers that they're facing right now of losing generational wealth. What do you think on that?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, if we go into a system of programmable digital currency, one of the things they can do is set time limits on it, or just seize it, or just turn it off.
Mm,
Right? So you might think you've got £6,000 or 60 grand in the bank or whatever, but if you once that becomes digital currency, they could put a time limit on it. Say,
mm,
well, you've got 60 grand, but it loses 15% every month. So, in 9 or 7 months, you won't have any money left unless you spend it. That's so people's savings could just be seized, just be
yeah,
taken.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah,
That is the system that they're building for that reason.
yeah. And
They
then there's
can't
the
own
assets as well,
your
Ian.
money, or asset value, everything. That'll be tokenized. That's what
Mm-hmm,
sustainable development's all about.
mm-hmm,
Your smart home, you'll have a smart meter,
mm-hmm,
which all your Internet of Things linked products and services, your washing machine, your fridge, your cooker, will be transmitting data through your smart meter that is monitored on a unified ledger database somewhere, which is a two-way process, because data can be transmitted back to your smart meter so that your smart meter can control where you can use your fridge or your cooker or whatever. Then that's the Internet of Things. That's what they're talking about when they talk about the Internet of Things. At the same time, if you've got a programmable digital wallet, a wallet with your programmable digital currency in it, you won't have any bills. There won't be
no,
bills, because every time you use your cooker,
it'll just
the
come out
money will just be taken straight out of your wallet
real
for the
time.
energy you
Everything.
use
That's it.
in
Everything's
real
real
time.
time. Yeah, yeah.
In real time. So you won't have any choice how much they charge you for it, for example. You won't have a choice, because it will just come out of your wallet, because they want to change the concept of a physical wallet as well.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
this this system that is, I mean, it's, I've been writing about this for a long time,
Mm.
and I just can't, I do find it not, I won't do it frustrating. I find it either frustrating or funny. I I flip flop between the two of being frustrated, funny, or just alarmed that people are not getting it. They're just walking into this horrific control system.
It's hell on earth, really. It's a living nightmare, and
Yeah,
people are they're so distracted and so stressed and so in need of, like you say, peace of mind, and they just want to get on with the days and whatever. They don't want to look at this because it brings responsibility, and this is the problem now. Each and every one of us is responsible now,
yeah,
more than ever. This is it. This is literally it, and not just for us, but for our kids, our
yeah,
grandkids, and the future of humanity. It's as strong as that. And that I feel, and you'll know this better than me, because you've been writing about this stuff for such a long time. This is even darker than what we're talking about on this podcast, because it's heading to transhumanism, which is further down the line, which is a real dark
yeah,
discussion to have, but it is heading that way.
yeah. No, there are definitely oligarchs like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and stuff like that are transhumanists, out and out transhumanists. They believe that the only way that we can survive what they call the singularity, which is the point at which technology becomes self-perpetuating, AI starts designing better AI, basically. that point. Sorry, sentient AI, which we are a long way away from.
Mm.
Sentient AI starts designing better sentient AI, and that's
Oh
the
God.
singularity, right? And we won't be able to cope. We won't be able to keep up with it. Of course, we could just unplug it. I don't know why nobody ever says that. We just unplug it,
It's
right?
like
But anyway,
HAL 9000 on 2001 Space
yeah,
Odyssey, isn't it?
yeah,
Just try and unplug it. No, you're not having that.
yeah,
I'm going
exactly.
nowhere.
Exactly. But this is but the point is that they say in order for us to cope to it, we either have to be, Thiel believes in this thing called the Dark Enlightenment, which says that we have to be converted into technoplastic beings. Right? Musk has said we are basically, he says we are nothing more than bootloaders for artificial intelligence. We are meat sacks. These people, that's what they believe. Now, but ordinarily, you could look at these. I in my latest book, I term them neo nerds.
Yeah,
We could look at these neo nerds and laugh in their faces, right? At how just ridiculous, their ideas are. They've got no concept of what it is to even be, even though they are human beings themselves. They've got no empathy. They've got no concept of kind of basic kind of human interaction, and they're just off the charts loony. And they're not loonies. That's wrong of me to say that. But they've got very, very, very strange ideas.
mm,
And we could laugh at those ideas and laugh at them. But unfortunately, they just happen to be in control of the Trump administration. They're in charge of the government of the United States of America.
yes.
So that's a problem. That is a
Massive.
problem. It's not, we need to be aware of that as well, because when we see things like, interestingly enough, you've got a situation like we've seen in Venezuela,
Mm-hmm.
we're told that this, obviously on its face, the Venezuelan narrative that the US have put out is ridiculous. It's not their oil. It's not even it's not your country, right? But anyway, but if you look behind that, what's really going on? Well, there's, the Maduro government did transfer a lot of Venezuelan oil into digital currencies and digital assets, billions, 60 odd billion maybe,
Mm-hmm.
of wealth transferred into probably Bitcoin and other digital assets, which nobody really quite knows where that is or who's got the keys to that wealth.
Right.
So there are the people that are involved in kind of digging into that at the moment, like, look, but again, on the surface, we're told this is about the oil. Well, Venezuelan oil, yeah, it's got a lot of oil, but that oil's not particularly high grade. It's tar oil. It's not easy to extract. Most of it is tar oil, so it's not the most economically viable kind of oil. But of course, it is economically viable. But and that's another point with SDGs. Of course, one of the great things is scarcity. You manufacture scarcity.
Yeah.
So the price of oil, the unit price of oil, can go through the roof because it's such a scarce and precious asset, or just a commodity. So you don't need to extract so much of it from the ground to make more money by selling it at a very much higher unit price. So
Mm.
then things like tar oil do start to become more economically viable, right? And but the point is that nobody's talking about, well, where's the $60 billion worth of digital assets that have gone missing from the Venezuelan economy, taken from the Venezuelan people by the Maduro regime or government? But you know, Maduro was democratically elected, right? So of course he's got, as far as the Venezuelan people are concerned, he's got a right, a democratic elected right to be the president.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that he's a great guy, right? As a lot of people seem to be saying, he has ripped off the economy. Him and his mates, they have done that. So there is that as well. But that doesn't mean that that situation is going to be improved if the Americans rip off the Venezuelan economy. That's not going to be better, but by the Americans doing it, and people like the oligarchs like Thiel and Anderson and Musk that are behind the Trump administration, it won't be better.
No.
They're already talking about building special economic zones and what they call charter cities in Venezuela. Right. So, they've done it in Honduras. So why not do it in Venezuela? Where these unregulated free zones, where their multinational corporations can do whatever they like. That's what they want to build in Venezuela. So, there's a lot more to it than just the very kind of surface level geopolitical story that we're told about what's going on there. There's all sorts of shenanigans going on with Venezuela.
Yeah, I've no doubt about it. And then they're on about Greenland as well, haven't they? They've been murmuring on that for a while, and now he's made it pretty clear that he's, Greenland is ours kind of thing.
I mean, it's. I remember. I mean, in the book, I talk about this because he spoke about the Greenland thing right as soon as or even before he became president for the second term. And what he drew out in words, that what he said in words. So he's talking about taking Greenland. Then he also, don't forget, he said that Canada should become the 51st state of the United States of America. So Greenland, Canada, the US. Then he talked about taking the Panama Canal. So he dispatched BlackRock to go and buy it from CK Holdings, the Chinese firm that owns the ports at either end of Panama Canal. So which China did, which CK Holdings said, nah, we're not selling them to you. So then he talked about taking Central America all the way down to the Panama Canal. And now he wants Venezuela. Now he's launched military attacks on Venezuela, but he was talking about that anyway. So what he drew, that map, it's bigger than the North American Union. We've seen the North American Union map, but this is bigger. This is going all the way from Venezuela all the way up to the northern tip of Greenland. No, what map's that? Who's ever seen that map before? Well, it's on the cover of Technocracy Inc.'s 1934 publication of its idea for a North American technate. That's a North American technate. That's that is the only place that as the only kind of representation of that map, saying that's all one thing. That's called the North American technate. And who is the biggest advocate of technocracy? Elon Musk. And what has Elon Musk, what was he told, or what did he say he would do when Trump was elected? Well, he would set up this thing that would oversee the efficiency, improving the efficiency of the American government. And what is the main drive behind technocracy? Improved efficiency. That's the basis. That's what it's all about. So they're not only are they metaphorically drawing out the North American technate and posturing as if that were something that they were seriously going to. I mean, obviously they're not going to take Greenland by military means, because that would mean war with Europe, presumably. That would be the end of NATO. War with Europe versus the US, global war. What Russia might think about that, who knows? What China might think about that. I mean, it would be global war, like if they took Greenland by force. Even though there's only 57,000 people that live there, it is a protectorate of Denmark.
That's right.
And so Denmark might not, but even the situation in Venezuela, if they simply impose, what's her face? Is it? Oh, I've forgotten her name now. The woman that they want to install.
Oh yeah. Well, she's already been licking the wall, I think. So
yeah, she's already licking the wall. So she's on board. And in fact, didn't she even say that she wanted to run it as a Zionist?
I think there's definitely something in that. I need to look further, but there is definitely something on that.
So even if they install her, right, they can't and effectively Venezuela becomes a kind of satellite of the US. That's still problematic. That's still problematic for the world, obviously, and particularly for the Venezuelan people. But nonetheless, what they are indicating is that they are physically trying to create the North American technate.
Yeah.
They're doing that now. And the people that want a North American technate, who are committed to it, and they've been committed to it for years, Elon Musk has openly said that he wants technocracy. He wants us to be ruled by technocracy. Those people are the people behind the Trump administration who are now clearly trying to bring together this North American technate, both metaphorically in drawing it out in words, and militarily, and certainly diplomatically and potentially militarily.
Yeah.
That is,
It's frightening. It's the revenge of the nerds, Ian.
yeah,
You know, it's like, but this is also regionized, isn't it? It's almost like the if you're going to have a new world order as such, you can see these regions, the big regions, rather than individual governments and whatever. You can see almost a takeover of that in a way. I mean, I'm not an expert on that by any stretch, but you can almost picture how they're pulling big regions together, but the people don't want it.
no.
And this is why it's down to the people all over the world to stand up. If they see something wrong, we've got to say no, and this behaviour's got to stop. It's outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, if we could do it in the UK, I mean, all I could, you and I, mate, we live in the UK, so this is our little patch of England and whatever to defend, and if we, and that's where it has to start. It has to start with the individual, and it has to be first and foremost, there has to be a revolution of the mind, because how long ago now? 500 years ago. A guy called Etienne de la Boétie wrote a book. He was talking about the situation 500 years ago, right? So, and he was talking about what he called the problem that we have with what he called the politics of obedience, because what he said was, obedience is not a virtue. Blind obedience to authority is not a virtue. What is a virtue is taking responsibility for your own moral behavior. That is virtuous.
Yeah.
Just doing, and we all know this. I mean, we know he was confronting this problem, which kind of tells us that nothing's changed, right? He was confronting the same problems back in the 15th century, 16th century that we confronting today. But and that is of dishonorable, venal, ruling elites that don't really care about us, only to the extent that they can control us and extract as much money out of us and as much power out of us as possible. That's it. Then we're farmed, and he knew that in the 16th century.
Yeah.
And so but what he said was that we don't need to have any kind of armed revolution or anything like that. We just need to be aware in our own minds that obedience is not a virtue. It's not good just to do what you are told without deciding for yourself what you think the right thing to do is.
Yeah.
And if we did that, we wouldn't do things like accept, control measures that are imposed upon us, because that's not right. And if we go through that process, as he pointed out at the in the politics of obedience, if we just withdraw our support from those that are trying to enforce us to live the life that they want us to lead, if we just withdraw our support from them, we don't elect them, we don't pay taxes to them, we don't interact with them, we don't have anything to do with them. They're just some loony stood on top of a hill howling into the wind that we pay no attention to and pay no heed to. Then, as he said, they will topple like a colossus and you will see them crumble as into dust. because they're not. They're the only power that they have over us is that we believe what they tell us. If we don't, they don't have any.
Yeah,
This
they're holding that
idea,
perception. Yeah.
yeah, this idea that they have authority is a fabrication of the mind. They only have anybody only has authority over you in any practical sense if you do what they tell you to do. Right? If someone comes up to you and says, pick that pen up, and you pick it up, then they have authority over you. They've just exerted their authority over you because you did what they told you to do. But if they come up to you and say, pick that pen up, and you turn around and go, no, get stuffed, then they have no authority over you. That their authority is purely a construct of your mind, of how you think about them.
Yeah.
So if you don't allow them to exert authority over you, they haven't actually got any. It doesn't. All they've got left then is the thing that they use to rule us, which they do now, which is coercion, deception, and force. That's all that really exists. This idea of some sort of magical authority, because going back to our constitution, I've mentioned this before, we are all equal under the law, before the law. We have equal human rights. No one's got more rights. So no one's got the right to tell you what to do. That doesn't exist. That's the only way that you could accept that authority exists is through imagination, because in reality it doesn't exist.
Interesting.
So all we need to do is have a revolution of the mind, but what that comes with is, as you said, and as you've pointed out a number of times, and you're absolutely right, is that means we have to accept responsibility for everything. It's not up to us to say, oh, well, can you take care of that problem for me? No one can take care of problems for you. You have to take care of it. Now, does that mean that we have to cooperate and work together to resolve problems? Of course it does. But we can do that. We don't need somebody to come from outside or some third party to come along and say to us, do this because of we have come up with a problem. We've defined the problem for you. We say you're subject to this problem. Therefore, do what we say so that we can solve this problem together. There's no together in that. There is no together in that. That is just someone saying, we've created a problem and now you're going to have to do this because of the problem we've created. No.
We're living the film The Wizard of Oz, Ian. We're literally living it, and it's kind of, we're just waiting for Toto to show the world that there's just this stupid old man behind the curtain. And Dorothy always had the power to go home, just didn't realize. And it's all perception.
It is, mate. Yeah. No, that's what I say. I flip-flop between, well, despair, really, and just laugh, just humor, because I just kind of.
It's mad. The world is crazy.
It is crazy, mate. It's pretty crazy.
When you step out of, when you become aware, and people say waking up, but I don't. I prefer awareness. When you step out of that brainwashing that you're in, because I remember my change. I remember my awareness changing, and the Anthony that existed pre-2012 is very different to the Ant Critchley that's now. I have a completely different awareness. I was very much just the normie, if you want to class a normie. I would go to work, just wanted to, I'm quite happy to watch the football. In fact, I look at my Facebook memories when they come up and it's all football related. I'm like, I don't even know who this person is, really.
Preston North End.
Well, Manchester United and Bury Football Club, actually. I was a Bury football.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, funnily enough, that was a real turning point for me, because it was like, I don't want anything to do. It helped me, because it was like, I don't want anything to do with football because it's just bollocks. But but that allowed. I needed that perception change, and I can see the difference in who I am. But that's also brought responsibility, because when you're in that brainwashing the subconscious mind and living out your programs, because we're all programmed from birth. When you're within that program, you could live doing that till your day you die, and most people will. But once you step out of it, it brings responsibility, because now I'm looking at it and going, hold on a minute, you're ruining my kids' lives now. You're destroying my kids' futures, their kids' futures. So what can I do about it? Now, I can only do a little bit, but that little bit's important. If millions of us are doing little bits and we do it together, it's over.
Yeah. It is. I mean, that's the point. If you talk about individual responsibility, people go, oh, well, what difference can you and I make? What difference can me and you make, right? Consider this. Imagine, I mean, the BBC TV license, right, as fewer and fewer of us are paying it. But imagine if this individual action, if the next time it comes round, you refuse to pay your TV license, say, nah, not paying it, chuck it. Now, imagine if, say, 20 million individuals in a year decide they're not going to pay it, right? Now, what that would be, I mean, the BBC is the main state propaganda outlet for the government, right, in the UK.
Yeah.
That would be seismic.
Yeah.
What is the government going to do about that? Well, we know what they probably will do. They'll probably try, and they're already talking about this, incorporating it into the tax system.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that's the way they do, because they can't let go of the BBC. It's their main propaganda vehicle, so they're not going to just leave it. But we stop paying it. So all right, well, you're going to tax us then, right? So you're going to introduce it as you're going to increase national insurance or income tax to take that to pay for the BBC. Fine, do that, but we're not going to watch it. We won't watch it.
Yeah.
So you can broadcast whatever you like Lord Haw. You can do broadcast whatever you like, but we're not watching it. So what difference does it make to us?
Yeah.
20 million of us do that. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
This is the power that we have. We have. That's why they're frightened of us. That's why they need to control our behavior, because we are uncontrollable if we decide we're not going to go along with their systems.
Yeah. And I think more and more are coming on board with that. I think more and more all the time. But this is why these chats are important for me. This is why you writing what you write is so important. More people that hear your voice and read your stuff, and others, obviously there's many others, but the more that people have that awareness, the better, because we can stop this. Because right now, as I said, this is it. This is literally it now. There has to be a line drawn in the sand. We have no choice right now, because what the technology they've got right now changes humanity forever. Literally changes it. We're already slaves. We're already born into systems that are slavery systems. We just accept as normal when they're heinous and evil in their own right. Anyway, but this is another level.
Yeah, this is the culmination of those systems. They've been drawing us to this point for centuries. This is the culmination of that. At the moment, we are controlled through propaganda, coercion, deception, the use of force, the illegitimate use of illegal and unlawful power. Right? That's how we are controlled at the moment. And self-policing is a big part of that. We believe that we have to do certain things in order to comply, and that this is important. We even take, millions of people still take some sort of sense of self-respect from that. They call themselves a good citizen. So let me get this right. At Nuremberg, being a good citizen was not a defense, right? Being a good citizen was not a defense at Nuremberg. Doing what you were told was actually deemed to be one of the most horrific crimes ever inflicted on humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what doing what you're told boils down to. So just saying you're a good citizen and I never break the law, there is nothing honourable about complying with an unjust law. There's nothing honourable about that.
No.
You're just in fact, you are enabling that unjust law to be what it is.
You're enforcing it.
You're enforcing the unjust law, right?
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
nothing honourable about that. So let's get beyond this notion that obedience is a virtue, because it is not. It's not a virtue in any kind of intellectual sense, and it's not a virtue in any philosophical sense, or even in a lawful and legal sense.
Yeah.
So we need to get beyond that. That is so important. And up to this point, we have been funneled into this through that control mechanism where obedience is a virtue, to this point now where they are about to flick the switch whereby it won't matter whether we're obedient or not, because they will actually control us. The control up to this point has been a myth.
Yeah.
We have to be convinced to go along with it, believing in the control mechanisms that they use.
Correct. Yeah.
We are now at the point where they're about to flip the switch where we will actually be physically controlled, because once our identity is linked to our ability to interact in society, then we can be actually controlled. So you can't book an appointment at the doctor, not because the system's collapsed, but because you haven't had your jabs.
Yeah.
And if you don't have your jabs, you don't get healthcare, by virtue of the fact that your access to it is programmed. Right? You can't buy certain products because you've said the wrong thing online. Not because we've passed a law, but because your access to those products and services has been restricted by program. So this is when this is a real physical control system. So what we think about it at that point, which is the thing that they've been so frightened of up to this point, what we do, our behavior and our thoughts and our ideas are the things that they've been like terrified of. Once they get us into this digital system, it doesn't matter from their perspective anymore, because now they have got actual control of us. So they don't need propaganda. They can just come along and just say, if they want, we've decided that we're going to take all your money next Thursday. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing we will be able to do about it. If we don't have parallel systems and we don't have systems outside of that system, there will be nothing we can do about it. So they don't need to pretend. They won't have to pretend. They just do whatever they like.
Yeah, and that's the revolution that's needed now. Is that parallel system, that physical world, the more natural world that we're meant to have. Not, there's nothing wrong with tech, that's fine, but if it's in use to control people, it's evil. And
Yeah.
we can't have that. We can't have that.
I mean, even stuff like AI, right? AI isn't bad in and of itself. I mean, if you're managing a large industrial process, for example, or even a large system like the NHS, a large administration like the bureaucracy like the NHS, AI could be useful for that. Of course, AI could be useful in improving the efficiency of such systems. So it's not even as if AI is a bad thing.
No.
We we can use that technology as we see fit. But
Yes.
What's happening is that we are being cajoled, coerced, and forced into a system where AI is not being used for the benefit, for the protection, for the health and safety for us. It's being used as a weapon. It's being used to, for literally as a weapon, targeting drone strikes on children. That's what they're using AI for.
That's it, because it's soulless. There's no empathy with AI. You're not going to get a human response.
Yeah, of course.
AI doesn't give a shit. It's a program. It doesn't
It's
give
just
a
an
shit.
algorithm. It's just an algorithm.
Exactly. I mean, I could talk all day with you, Iain, you know, and I really could, but we're going to have to wrap it up at some point because we've gone for an hour and 45. But
Have we?
yeah. I mean, it's that's a. I mean,
God, I did bang on, didn't I, when I get going? Sorry about that.
No, it's perfect. The thing is, I could literally go on and on and on about, and I think maybe we should have another chat at some point because there's so much more to talk about. I've got a shitload of questions here, shitloads, but
I forgot what I was going to say, and then I started.
But that's great. What I wanted to end on really now at this point, because it was in my mind, I'm thinking Keir Starmer, the legend that is Keir Starmer. So I remember watching him interviewed, and this fellow was saying to him, can you provide assurances to the British public that other governments in the future wouldn't use this technology in nefarious ways? And they said, "Oh, we'll write this in the proposals." But are we seriously going to just accept that? I mean, come on.
Well, don't forget also, Parliament says that it is not bound by any law that was written by a previous Parliament, right? It's not bound by legislation. That's what Parliament says. So him saying that, like, oh no, we'll put it into the regulations. The regulations don't mean anything, mate. The next Parliament that sits can just get rid of the regulations. So it doesn't. Yeah, I mean,
it's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff. But the point is, I would say about the political system, one of the things you alluded to earlier was if they, voting for reform, right? It's not going to change the system. It won't change the system. No. We are going to get digital identity control if we don't do something about it, the kind of things that we've been talking about, no matter who anybody votes for. It doesn't make any difference who people vote for in respect to that. In respect, things like the big global issues, sustainable development, energy consumption, green energy transition, net zero, all of these big issues. All you'll get if you vote for another party is they might rebrand it. They might call it something else. So, the EU calls sustainable development goal, free specialist economic zones, 15-minute cities. Our local councils call them 15-minute cities. In America, where Trump is opposed and they're opposed to sustainable development and they hate it, they call them freedom cities. It's the same idea. It's just rebranded. They just rebranded it for a different market. It's the same idea. So this notion that you can elect somebody that's going to make a fundamental change is hopeless. It is hopeless.
Yeah, it's
why people bother, I've got no idea.
It's down to us. It's absolutely down to us, Iain. And I spoke to Gareth Ikery a couple of months ago on Iconic, and he said, what can we say to people who voted in kind of Labour and things like that, and why has it not made a difference? And my joke was, well, vote harder next time then, because clearly you didn't vote hard enough, did you?
Yeah.
Because it's always the bloody same. Are we going to learn our lessons as people that these guys that are bought and paid for have no interest in either of us? They do not care. As long as they're making money, they don't give a shit. So it's down to us.
Yeah, it is absolutely, mate. And we can do it. We can do. I mean, we can do this. I mean, it's not beyond the wit of us to just be more independent and just break away from, and I mean, at the moment, you think about ideas like people putting solar panels on their roofs, right? And then selling the excess energy back to the grid. Don't sell it back to the grid. Charge up a battery bank with them. Yeah. And then turn your power off when if you've got sufficient juice in your battery to run your house for a day. Turn your power off. Maybe you're not supposed to do that, but there may be ways and means to do that. These are the kind of things that we need to start thinking about doing.
Well,
And we can be better.
you're not even allowed to burn wood anymore, Ian. So
Oh, yeah, because CO2 is a poison. Wow.
the world is a clown world, though. It's
It
literally
is, mate. Yeah, no, it is. I mean, and no, why not laugh at it? Why not laugh at it?
Gotta do. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I'll go mad if I don't laugh.
yeah, exactly.
But we
Exactly.
have got work to do, Ian. I mean, laughing aside, and I do laugh at it, and I do make joke at it, and I make light of things. I just feel that there's a job to do. I can't. I know if I'm on my deathbed and I've not done what I can in my small capacity, then I will not rest well. I know that. I
Yeah,
have to
no,
do
I'm the same,
something.
mate. Yeah, I'm the same, mate. I mean, we all come into this world with nothing, and we'll all leave with nothing. So, what we do in the meantime is it's down to our own conscience. It's whatever your conscience. I'm like you. I couldn't go along with this and sleep with myself at night without just at least trying
Exactly.
to do something, and one of the things that really, and one of the key messages that we get from the propaganda, and I think that there are people within movements that talk about this kind of stuff. You get this constant thing comes back around and says it's pointless. There's no point. It's pointless trying to resist. I mean, it's almost like the Borg, like resistance is futile. It is not futile. It is not futile. Of course, people want you to think resistance is futile because if you don't resist, you're going to get everything with both barrels. But if you do resist, and you do start thinking about maximizing your independence, so you're not reliant upon systems that can be used to control you, then if we all do that in sufficient numbers, then we will create this market, this non-digital market, or however it might manifest, potentially, where it will become economically advantageous for businesses to supply the goods and services that we want to buy without using digital money. That will happen if we build that thing.
Now's the time. Resistance is crucial.
Yeah.
Ian, how do people find your work, buy your books? I know you're on Substack as well, but you've got your own website as well, haven't you?
Yeah, my website is iaindavis.com. So that's all one word, Iain Davis. My name's the Scottish, but IAIN Davis.com. My Substack is iaindavis.substack.com. I am, Substack is a honey pot trap, and I'm kind of quite cross with myself for getting myself so reliant upon it to a certain extent. Certainly financially, it's been a big part of my income. So
yeah.
I've got to wean myself off that, and I'm trying to do that at the moment because they're already placing restrictions on people. I know people in Australia, New Zealand can't access it unless they verify themselves. So we've got to get off. We've got to get off these systems. There's that. My latest book is called The Technocratic Dark State, and it's available. It's still available for pre-order, I think, or it might be being shipped soon. I'm not quite sure. But that is the technocraticdarkstate.com, and that is all one word. The Technocratic Dark State is all one word. Where you can pre-order the book and get the book. So that would be great. Yeah. Actually, by the time this goes out, it probably will be available. So it's not in pre-order. It's been in pre-order up to now, but now it'll be delivered when you get a copy.
Well, that's brilliant, Ian, and thanks for all the work you do. Thanks for chatting with me today. I really appreciate your time. I'll make sure those links are in the show notes as well, so people can just click on them and get to your work. Keep doing what you're doing, Ian. It's crucial. It's really crucial.
I will do, mate, and likewise, because you're doing a lot of work as well. I mean, you helped sort out that protest, which I know you volunteered and supported Fiona to get that protest going, which was absolutely vital. And I mean, considering when you think it was the middle of the winter and it was bloody freezing, wasn't it?
It was cold,
yeah. how many people turned up for the march? The march was a good size, that march.
It was.
And it was cold, and it was a
Yeah.
good size, that march. You
Yeah.
know, the people, obviously the numbers went towards the end of the evening as people were freezing.
Of
But even
course.
then, the diehards were still stood there with their woolly hats on and their gloves and their So thanks for everything you're doing, mate, and keep going, because like it's people like you and Fiona and her team of volunteers. You guys are doing something. You're doing something, and that's what we all need to do. So I'm more than happy to support what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Iain. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll do this again, because we'll never this stuff's not going away anytime soon. So we're always going to have subjects to chat about and get awareness out there. So hopefully we can do this again. But thanks again, Iain, and all the best to you, mate.
Appreciate it, mate. Take it easy.